Back in the early 1900s, racing timer manufacturer Heuer decided to do something pretty revolutionary. Where watches had previously been able to record up to an eighth of a second and in rare cases a tenth, Heuer saw an opportunity to push that all the way to 1/100th of a second, 10 times the accuracy. The resulting 1916 Mikrograph secured the manufacturer such prestigious timing responsibilities as the Indianapolis 500 and F1, but it took the watchmaker almost a century to be able to recreate it. Why? Looking to buy, sell, or exchange a premium watch? Visit Watchfinder, the pre-owned watch specialist. A big thank you to every single person who watches and enjoys these videos. It really means a huge amount to us, and to me personally. Your subscription would be hugely appreciated. It helps more than you can know. Thank you. What stands in the way of a watch breaking the 1/100th of a second barrier is, well, plain old physics. Where to you and I, the second hand of a mechanical watch, unlike a quartz one which operates in discrete 1-second ticks, appears to be continually moving, the truth is rather different. It is, in fact, exactly like a quartz second hand, ticking from one point to the next, only there are many more smaller ticks, 8 and even 10 times as many. Instead of motors, a mechanical watch has a spring-driven locking mechanism that releases power evenly over time. This is called the escapement, and it's the heart and soul of the accuracy of a mechanical caliber. How are the pauses between each tick determined? By storing a bit of the energy from the mainspring in a smaller spring, the balance spring. Imagine a pendulum that you can push freely. If you give it a swing, it will take a fixed amount of time to arc away, change direction, and come back. If you give it the same amount of push every time, you'll be able to keep a steady rhythm, and the swings will be regulated. A balance wheel behaves exactly like this, with each swing taking around 1/10th of a second. So how about a watch capable of ticking 100 times per second? Simple maths tells you the beats need to be 10 times as fast. Back to the pendulum, intuition also tells you that to make the pendulum swing there and back faster for the same input, it must be much, much smaller. And that's exactly what TAG Heuer did back in 1916, make a stopwatch with a very small balance wheel, and thus the 1/100th of a second Mikrograph was born. And here's where we stumble upon the problem behind its recreation. The reason a quartz watch ticks once per second is to save energy. Early quartz watches attempted to mimic the sweep of mechanical, but the net result was a very short battery life. The ability to wind a mainspring either automatically or by hand every few days means efficiency is less of a problem, allowing a faster, more precise beat. Take a 2-day power reserve and divide it by 10 for your 1/100th of a second watch, and you've got an unusable watch. Fine for a stopwatch, like the original Mikrograph, whose duty need not be called upon for more than a few hours at a time. But for a wristwatch, that just isn't practical. So TAG Heuer thought about it, and thought about it, and thought about it some more. 4 years shy of a century, the puzzle was considered, trying to fathom how a watch could be able to tick 100 times per second, yet still be usable day to day. There had to be an answer, some way of combining the functionality and practicality of both into one movement. Turns out there wasn't an answer, or at least not the answer anyone expected. It was 2011 when TAG Heuer cracked it, and the Mikrograph name was finally seen again. Here, in this very watch, lies the capability to not only record time to 1/100th of a second, but also to operate with a healthy 42-hour power reserve as well. The road wasn't easy. The concept caliber 360, shown in 2005, demonstrated the idea, but the watch wasn't yet ready for the rigors of daily use, delicate and unreliable. The movement was a hodgepodge of bought-in parts, a proof of concept that was costing the company a lot of time and money that could have easily been for nothing. 15 of these concept pieces were sold at a very high price to discerning collectors keen on being part of this journey, with the caveat that its performance was to be used with caution. But 4 more years of research and development finally paid off. In a gold 43mm case with a cream and brown dial, the limited edition, this time to a more sensible 150 pieces, Mikrograph was released into the wild. This time there were no caveats. The movement was entirely TAG Heuer's own from the ground up, capable of demonstrating its mind-bending stunt time and time again without limitation. So, the solution. Physics put a stop to the idea of increasing efficiency. I mean, come on, that was never going to happen. But what TAG Heuer could do was cheat. It could quite happily make a movement with a normal beat that could last a normal amount of time, and also quite happily make a faster beat that lasted no time at all, and so all that was needed was to glue them together. That wasn't far off the truth for the concept caliber, but for the final thing, a little more thought had to be used. There would be 2 escapements, one big, one small, 2 mainsprings, one with a 42-hour power reserve for the timekeeping, one with a 90-minute power reserve for the chronograph. But the watch itself had to operate like it was all one seamless mechanism. 2 movements, 1 watch. Wind the time with the automatic rotor, wind the chronograph with the crown. There's even a power reserve indicator for the chronograph at 12, although it is, rather confusingly given the 90-minute reserve, displayed in percent. The result? A blue chronograph second hand that whizzes around the dial once every second. It's so fast there has to be a subdial at 6 to keep track of the good old second. Chronograph minutes are at 3, running seconds are 9. Of course, there's no need to track the hours, as I think most operators will be quite capable of counting up to 1. The start-stop pusher even gets a locking screw just so you don't wind down your 90 minutes by accident. But the display of wizardry doesn't stop there, because flip the watch over and the Mikrograph's caliber has another treat for you. The twin display of balance wheels used to make the watch's capabilities possible. There's one, labelled 28,800 beats per hour, that's 8 per second. And then the one that caused all the fuss, the one that makes 1/100th of a second possible, and that beats 360,000 times per hour. You might be thinking to yourself that this all seems quite familiar, and that's because it probably is. The technology was revisited by sister brand Zenith for the Defy El Primero 21, 6 years later in 2017. But TAG Heuer's not worried. Far from it, in fact, because 1/100th of a second is only the warm-up. Take the Mikrogirder, for instance. How's 5/10,000ths of a second for you? Discover more exceptional watches at Watchfinder. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please do consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. If there are any watches you'd like to see featured, please let us know in the comments below.